Hey y'all, welcome back to Conversations with a Therapist podcast. And unfortunately, today's episode is going to be a monologue. Bear with me, please. This is going to be fun, I promise. If you've listened to the previous episode, we were talking about the wheel of change. That was part 1. And now we are doing wheel of change part 2. And in the previous episodes, we covered the first stage and the second stage of the wheel of change. We went through what they are, what happens there, and so we are left with stage 3, 4, 5, and 6. So today, those are the stages I'm going to cover. I know they sound like they are a lot, but they aren't. They are quite simple. In speaking about them, theoretically they are simple, but putting them in practice is where the work lies. So if I may do a small recap for anyone who's listening in who has not had the opportunity to listen to the previous episode, which was part 1 of the Wheel of Change, allow me to define addiction and to talk about some of the things that happen within the first and the second stages of the Wheel of Change. Addiction, I decided to define it according to one of my favorite researchers, thinkers, writers, thought leaders. He's literally one of my favorite people when it comes to the field of psychology, and his name is Gabor Mate. He defines addiction as a complex psychological or physiological process that manifests in any behavior that a person enjoys, craves, and finds relief in the short term, but suffers negative consequences in the long term and does not give up despite the negative consequences. So listening to that definition, there are a couple of things that crop up. You can hear that in the short term, there's craving, pleasure, and relief from whatever behavior it is. In the long term, there's negative consequences and the inability to give up that behavior. So that's like basically what I would define as addiction as well. I like that definition because it covers a multitude of things. It's not just addiction to substances like alcohol or any kind of street drug. It's a definition about behaviors in general that can become addictive, like work and sports, maybe those intense sports that require you to apply yourself constantly, to apply a lot of energy and intensity in the short term or even the long term. So that rush of dopamine, I think, can be addictive. It can be addictive behaviors, can be shopping, can be tattoos. I hear there are people who are addicted to tattoos. That pain in the tattoo makes them feel some type of way. So addiction, basically, it covers all behaviors. It can be any behavior where you crave it, you get pleasure from it, and you get relief from doing that behavior in the short term. But in the long term, there are negative consequences, and you struggle with the ability to give it up. It's very hard for you to give up that behavior despite the negative consequences in the long term. So that's a neat definition of addiction for anybody who did not get a chance to hear that in the first part of the Wheel of Change. Looking at what happens in the contemplation and the pre-contemplation stages, or rather the contemplation, the pre-contemplation and the contemplation stages, I think it's important to point out that in the pre-contemplation stage, which is the first one, the person who's in that stage does not really see a problem with their behavior. They don't feel like they need to change. They're okay. They feel that mimi niko sawa, I really don't have a problem right now, I'm doing okay, right? And so they get stuck in that place where yes, there's a problem, but they can't see it, and so they can't change it. And the reason why people can stay in pre-contemplation include reluctance. Maybe they don't want to change for some reason. They have a reason why they don't want to change. or they don't have the knowledge that they actually have a problem. They don't see an issue. So that's part of the reluctance. It can be rebellion, where the person knows the effects of their behavior, the one that is addictive, but they still use or keep doing that same behavior despite knowing that it is harmful to them. So that can be maybe due to rebellion. Sometimes it can be having like given up, a kind of giving up hope about the possibility of change. So maybe you've tried changing in the past, and you've gone through the motions, you've gone through the wheel of change from beginning to end, and you've relapsed. Yeah, and so because you've relapsed, you feel that whether you've relapsed once or twice or however number of times you've relapsed, you feel that I actually cannot do this. I can't do this. I'm not built for sobriety. I'm not built for a life where I'm not addicted to this particular thing that I'm addicted to. So you give up hope and you decide this is not for me. Let me just continue being the way I am because I really can't do anything about this. Another reason that people can be stuck in the pre-contemplation stage, forgive me, are the rationalizing. Like you have the knowledge. You know that there's a problem. You know that the particular behavior that you are engaging in is problematic to a degree because you've seen the things that we have mentioned about the behavior, that in the long term there are negative consequences. But then you have a bunch of reasons why you cannot quit that behavior, you cannot stop that behavior, and that rationalizing can keep you stuck because you'll always have a reason behind why you're doing what you're doing. So you'll find that, for example, if somebody is, let's take an example, like a person is abusing alcohol, they'll be like, if I don't take the drug, if I don't take the alcohol, I can't do my job. And you'll see them sometimes shaking physically. They have a reason. You can see the reason. And so they will use that reason to rationalize the behavior. So that's a part of the reasons why people can get stuck at that pre-contemplation stage. And maybe that's just something to look out for, and be aware that you're rationalizing when you are, and just hold yourself accountable. And I think that will be helpful. In the contemplation stage, this is the part where the person is thinking of change. They've actually started considering. They're like, yeah, I think I could have a problem. I think I need to do something about whatever it is that's going on right now. And so this is a place where they're gathering information. They are trying to understand what's going on. They're trying to look at their actions more critically. They're trying to look at how the behavior is affecting their lives more critically, because they have now started considering the possibility that they could actually have a problem. So that's a neat stage to be in. The one thing that I think is quite important is to remember that when your dear one, your loved one, is in the contemplation stage, they will benefit from you not being judgmental. They require your support. They need you to be understanding and to be present and to hear them and to understand what they are dealing with. And this is the time probably to hold back on telling them they will never succeed, or telling them any negative things about their desire to change. This is probably the time to help them keep track of whatever they need to keep track of, and to just be present. Don't try to confront them and to shout at them and to tell them how they are not even succeeding, even if they're not succeeding because of their behavior, how this or the other is happening because of the behavior. That's not the time. That's the time to actually be very, very understanding and caring and present, and very motivating and encouraging their desire to change their behavior. So pay attention to that. I think that will be helpful to anyone who's at that stage. And also, I think even if you're the one who's at that stage right now, probably do not judge yourself as well. Be your own cheerleader, and don't keep telling yourself about how you will never be able to overcome the addiction. This is the time to remind yourself that you actually have it within yourself. You have it within you to make whatever change that you want to make. And so, getting into our episode's content, which is starting from the third stage, the preparation stage, also called the determination stage. This is the place where people are now ready to make a change. This is the stage where you've decided that now I really have a problem and I'm ready to do something about it. And during this stage, you may find that people start planning of the kind of change they want to make. So if, for example, you are a chronic shopper, you feel that you're addicted to shopping, this is the time you start thinking about, I want to stop this, I want to work on this addiction. Do I want to completely quit shopping? Do I want to go cold turkey and say I'm not buying things again, like unnecessary things again in the foreseeable future? Or what does that change look like? Those are some of the questions that you will be asking yourselves. What does that change from my addictive behavior look like? And what do I want to do, right? If you're struggling with an addiction in something like drugs, maybe you will want to know, do I want to quit completely and stop taking this particular drug? Or do I want to reduce my intake of the particular drug? Do I want to if let's say it's alcohol, do you want to maybe drink on the weekends only, or drink on special occasions only, like maybe birthdays and Christmas or whatever? When do you want to partake and when do you not want to partake? So these are some of the questions you might find asking yourself. There's that determination of how you make the change. So you keep digging and digging in the preparation stage. What exactly do I want to do and how do I want to do it? This is also the place where most people start collecting the necessary resources that they will require to help them get to sobriety or to break the addiction. So if for example, you're trying to break an addiction to cigarette smoking, you might start thinking about patches, the nicotine patches and stuff like that. You start thinking about what would work for you, which kind of nicotine patch is out there that could work for you, things like that. So you want to start thinking about what exactly will you need, what are the resources you will need to support you in your journey towards sobriety. This is also the time where you start monitoring and learning what your triggers are. Knowing your triggers is important, obviously, so that you know how to avoid them or to go around them. You want to know how to get rid of those triggers, to deal with them when they show up, and what are you going to do about it, right? So if your trigger is for example, if let's say you're struggling with a sexual addiction and your trigger is something like pornography, then you want to find a way to ensure that you don't come across pornography, because you know it will drag you down a rabbit hole, right? So those are some of the things that you want to do, to learn what is my trigger, what gets me to that place, what exactly makes me spiral into this addictive behavior. When does it usually start? Where does it usually start? With who? Things like that. This is also the time where people start looking for support from family and friends and tell them, this is what I'm trying to do and this is what I am hoping to achieve. I hope that you can support me, you can help me and keep me accountable. You can have an accountability partner if that's possible for you. Just make sure that somebody knows, so that they help you through the journey, and you can call them when things get hard. And I think that's why, like for something like AA and NA, there's usually Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. There's usually an accountability partner that you get, so that when things get really hard, you have somebody to call and talk to, and especially when you're feeling like you are about to actually go and do that thing that you don't want to do. That's the time you call your partner, your accountability partner, and speak to them, and they will help you regulate yourself and get to a place of calm, and get to a place where you are no longer intending to go and get the substance that you are intending to get. So that's something that I think that's very important. During this stage, I think it's quite important that you make very realistic goals. You make very realistic goals about your recovery. Do not set like extremely high goals that you have a likelihood of not achieving. because then you'll only be setting yourself up for failure. So this is the time that to set up realistic goals, know what can really be done during the duration of time that you're intending to do it. If you're planning to quit smoking, if you say that you're going to wake up one morning and decide today is the day that I stop smoking, for some people it works. They will wake up and quit cold turkey. But then for some people they need a bit of time. Some people they need to reduce the behavior, the substance they're abusing. They need to reduce it slowly, gradually, one step at a time. So you may find that you may decide I will no longer smoke a packet of cigarettes. I'll smoke half a packet, and then after that maybe I'll smoke 2 cigarettes a day, and then maybe 1 cigarette a day, and after some weeks you are down to no cigarettes a day. So it takes time, or after a few months or a few years, recovery takes time, and it's a very personalized process. No one thing fits for everybody. So don't also beat yourself up if you can't maintain that that linear progression of from one stage to the next. Just give it time and see how it goes. So preparation stage, I think that's a lot and enough to speak about in the preparation stage. Stage 4 is the action stage, and this is the place where you actually do the work that is required for recovery. And this is the stage where you do everything that you said you will do in the preparation stage. So if you had said that you are going to cut down your cigarette smoking to half a packet a day, that is the time that you actually do that cutting down. That's the day that you wake up and you actually smoke half a packet, not an entire packet. It's literally that. The action stage is doing exactly what you said you were going to do. For some people, it may include big things, big changes, like going to rehab. Some people going for a detox program. Some people may require. For some people, it's not that big. For some people, they don't have to do these grand gestures to get to their place of healing. For some people, it's small, gradual changes on a day-to-day basis. So it will require a lot of restraint and practicing holding yourself back, practicing healthy coping mechanisms for stress and any kind of stressors that usually throw you back into an addictive place, so an addictive behavior. So that's the action stage. That's where you do that work. That's the time where if you're invited to a party and you know there's going to be alcohol, the action stage is where you say, no, I can't go because being around people who are drinking makes me drink, right? So this is the place where there's this thing that we talk about in the addiction programs, where we talk about the PPTs. This is where you need to know your PPTs. You need to know your people, places, and things. These are the people who trigger you, the places that trigger you, and the things that trigger you to do the addictive behavior. So you need to be aware of your PPTs. In your action stage, you need to be very, very keen on those things. Make sure that they do not drag you back, so that you're able to maintain your sobriety. So yeah, I think that's a lot to say about the action stage. So the main takeaway for the action stage is identifying what triggers you and developing effective ways of coping with the stressors and the triggers during that period of time, so that you don't have to keep falling back into the addictive behavior, the addictive cycle. And it also sets you up to do a really healthy maintenance part of your change, because maintenance is the next stage. The next stage is maintenance, stage 5. So with maintenance, it's exactly that. You're committed to maintain your sobriety through the next couple of weeks, months, years, to the time to forever, to eternity, I guess. So that's the time that you commit to maintain your sobriety, and that's that. So I in my assessment, I feel that action stage and maintenance stage are very close to each other, because the action stage sets you up for a clean maintenance stage, where you can if you learn to avoid your PPTs early on, you're able to maintain that behavior. So if you know how to avoid the people, places, and things that trigger you into an addiction spree, then you're able to maintain a good healing process, if I may call it. It's really very simple in theory, as I said, but practicing it is where the work lies. So don't beat yourself up for any time that these things get really difficult. The maintenance stage is actually one of the most challenging stages, because the stresses of life usually come back after you have that energy in the action stage, in the contemplation stage, the pre-contemplation stage. You have that energy for actually doing the work. You've realized, I want to do the work, I'm going to get clean, I'm going to do my thing. But then after a while, you've been in the action stage for a while, and then you start to feel comfortable. You start to feel I have control over my addiction. I am doing well. I can go back out there and do whatever I was doing, and I'd be okay, right? So this is the place where you might find yourself going back and hanging out with people who usually do the behavior that you are trying to work on. This is the time you find yourself, if let's say it's alcohol, you might find yourself going to a club, but you go during the day because you're thinking, it's during the day, there's no partying really, I can go and just sit there and eat my food. But then there's a likelihood that you're going to just you're going to find yourself drinking something one way or another, because you're going to be in the presence of alcohol. So during this maintenance stage, it's very easy to lie to yourself that you have control over whatever it is that you are struggling with in the beginning. And I think this is a good time to refer to the first step of the 12-step program of AA, which is realizing that you have no control, that you are powerless over your addiction, or whatever behavior that you are addicted to. You're powerless over it, and it requires a lot of help from outside. It requires a lot of help from your higher power. And so don't let the illusion of control throw you back to the very place that you've been running away from, right? So be very careful not to become complacent, to become chilled about yourself and your addiction. Do not become convinced that you actually have full control at this point. Remember, this is probably the time where like, for example, let's say during this Christmas season, you may find yourself around family and friends who are drinking, and maybe your problem is struggling with alcohol. So this is the time to even avoid those things even more, to be very clear with people around you, because some people can tempt you. They'll be like, so you've been clean for the last 1 year. One drink will do nothing to you. It's very easy for family and friends to say things like that. And that's why you need to surround yourself with people who are actually in support of your sobriety journey, and don't just fall back there. Be very how do I put it? Be very strong in your convictions and in your no. Just be very willing to say no, thank you to those things, because they will throw you back so far, and then now you feel like giving up, because you're thinking, I've been so clean for so long, and then suddenly this one drink threw me back, or this one activity threw me back to where I was. So I think that's something to think about, and something to look into, and it will help you maintain your sobriety for a long time. But with that said, the last stage, which I was saying is stage 6, and sometimes it's put under stage 5. So they go hand in hand, like maintenance stroke relapse, because either or can happen, right? So the relapse stage is where you fall back into the addiction, and the relapse stage can happen. You can either maintain your sobriety or relapse. Those are the two options you have, sadly. So, like, for example, when you've completely gone through your action stage, and now you're on the maintenance stage, and you're maintaining your sobriety, you're doing everything you need to be doing, you're aware of your PPTs, you're practicing whatever you need to practice to maintain your sobriety, you can find yourself relapsing, or you can continue being on that maintenance journey. So relapsing looks like can be actually there's something I need to define there. There's a relapse and there's a lapse. So a lapse is a temporary falling back, like let's say you've been clean for a year, and then you have one drink on one day, or you have a bunch of drinks in one weekend. That is a lapse, because that takes you out of that knocks you off your your journey, but it's temporary, and you can easily get back to the action stage and the maintenance stage when you have had a lapse. Now, with a relapse, the problem with the relapse is that it takes you back to square one. It takes you back to the very first stage, the pre-contemplation stage. That's where you go like, I don't have a problem. I am fine. You forget everything you've been doing, right? And that can be very uncomfortable for many people. That can be very what's that word for? That can be very discouraging for many people when you find yourself having relapsed. It can be very discouraging on your journey. You can think that you could have done better, you could have done some things differently, you could have made better choices. But I'm here to tell you that this journey of recovery is not linear. And so many people have many lapses and many relapses in their journey for very many years, and they eventually get well. And so don't hold yourself in that place where you are now thinking that you are not good enough just because you had a lapse or a relapse. This is not the time to tell yourself that you are a horrible person, that you're a failure or whatever. This is not the time for negative self-talk. This is the time for compassion and empathy, to remember that you're human, and that just as the addiction took time to become an addiction, the healing will take time to become complete healing. And so I think those are some of the things that everybody should have in mind when they're thinking about the wheel of change. When you're thinking about quitting any behavior, as you've said, addiction it covers all behaviors. It's not just about substances. It's not just about alcohol. It's about behavior in general. And so I think it's quite necessary for all of us to look into that. If you have a friend or a relative who's been battling addiction, this is the time to get them some help. There's help, as we've said in the past in this podcast, in many episodes, that there's help. You're not alone. You don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to suffer in silence. There's a lot of help out there. There's if you're ever stuck and you're not sure where to start, Mathari Hospital, I always recommend Mathari Hospital. That's the first place to go to. They have counselors, they have psychiatrists, they have every mental health practitioner that you may need, and they can always give you guidance, and they can help you figure out exactly what to deal with, what you're dealing with, what it looks like, and what help lies ahead, what healing looks like in the future. And I think that's a good place to start any of your journey. That's a good place to start your journey when you're thinking of changing a particular behavior, and especially substance abuse, which is really, really common. Remember that you're not alone. I think that is just my emphasis, that you're not alone. And with time, things get better. With time, you get better. With time, you heal and your family heals. Remember, addiction does not just affect the person who's addicted, it affects the entire family. Because nobody exists in a vacuum, nobody exists on their own. No man is an island, right? So remember that addiction affects the entire family. If you're a caregiver with a person who's addicted to something, have compassion. Remember that they need support, and that addiction is a mental illness. Again, it's not a moral failure. It's not a character flaw. It's not that they have they're bad people. It's not that they have been possessed by demons. It's a disease, and it requires assistance from medical practitioners, and the willingness of the person who's going through the journey, for them to be committed to their recovery, to their healing. So with those few words said, I'd like to say thank you for listening, and I hope that you get value out of this. If you know anybody who's struggling with anything of the sort that we've been speaking about, kindly send them this audio, let them listen to it. Send them this episode, let them listen to it, so that they see where they are on that wheel of change. Are they in the first stage? Are they in the second stage? Which stage are they on? And remember that once they see what stage they are on, they are able then to make concrete plans and take action, and start working on the problem. So share this with a friend, share this with a family member, a colleague, share this with someone who you know will benefit from it, and let's make let's make the world a better place by just being our brothers and sisters keepers. If you have any questions, as always, kindly send them through at safespacearena@gmail.com, or you can tweet me at safespacearena on Twitter, on Facebook, or you can DM. You can always find us. If you have anything that you want to discuss, any comments, you can leave them in the comment section of Twitter when we post this audio. So yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you again, and have a wonderful time, and take care. Bye.